All right, YouTube, straight from our friends at the Daily Mail over in the UK, that famous, or I should say infamous, tabloid, sort of mixed with actual news, comes this story, exclusive. It's exclusive, so you know it's going to be good. Charles Manson's 26-year-old bride is an opportunistic pariah simply interested in his hidden fortune, says his son, a musician whose mother was raped by the imprisoned serial killer. 80. The first thing here that doesn't really make sense is apparently his mother was raped by Manson at an orgy, when in reality it's quite possible she simply wanted to have sex with Charles Manson. I'm not sure if there's been a paternity test or not. It could just be some weird claim that he's making. Maybe he's actually Tex Watson's son, for all anybody knows, or Steve Grogan there, or some other person from the ranch, but that's not exactly clear. The second thing is this hidden fortune. He proposes might be in the high six-figure region. I find that difficult to believe. The span of time involved and the type of things being sold, the idea that one person, including somebody who's rather infamous like Manson, would have generated that many sales in that amount of time after you're talking about the cost of production of some of these prints and postcards and musical albums and so forth. I don't honestly believe that. I think five-figure mark, certainly, maybe even low six figures. I don't think that this fortune is quite as vast as he imagines, and a lot of that probably goes towards maintaining the sites themselves. No, this is straight nonsense right here. I mean, it's full of complete nonsense. He's talking about how, oh, she needs to realize she'll become the most hated woman in America if she marries Manson. I don't understand why. Again, the media is just pulling this same thing where they sort of act like because he's Charles Manson, anything that he does that seems too normal is somehow a grave sin or something, and they apply the same logic now to Star. It's like her name, Afton Burton. They wouldn't use her real name before. They referred to her as Star, probably to keep up this sort of spooky dooky sort of who is this mysterious woman in red sort of thing that's whining and dining Charles in his cell. Who could it be? It must be some witchy acolyte disciple here to start a race war. And then when it became clear that she was really more interested in just meeting with Manson and sort of living a private life, then they come out with her real name, probably to try to scare or intimidate her in some way, which I think is funny. Judging from what I know, probably not going to happen. Oh man, it's hilarious. It's like she comes out wearing a ring in the last few days, and everyone's already buzzing with, oh, has she already married Manson? Is this an engagement ring, a wedding ring? Has the ceremony already happened in secret? And the most funny thing I think here is this. His son, so-called, probably is his son. I'll give him credit on that, although I question the validity of claiming that she was raped at the ranch or something like that when Manson apparently had hundreds of women riding his cock all the time. I find that perhaps a little bit hard to believe, but I'll get past that. The funniest thing is this, that he claims that Manson is being manipulated by Starr. Now, as to his claim, and this has been repeated by the Daily Mail as well as other media outlets, which is actually the case? I find it hard to believe that both of these can coexist. Is Manson a super manipulative, hyper-genius, psychopathic, absolute killer, Satan, helter-skelter guru who is able with a single word to completely take over other people's minds and cause them to kill and die for him? Or is he actually simply a befuddled, love-struck old man who in turn is being manipulated by somebody else who is now, apparently they're setting the stage to declare her the same type of manipulator? I don't think the two logically can coexist. Because if Manson truly is this sort of mastermind killer that everybody keeps talking about, the absolute psycho, perfect, hypnotic Witch King killer, It doesn't make sense that he would be able to be manipulated by somebody who is, ostensibly love-struck with him. Then he goes on to say, well, maybe she's just in love with the idea of Manson. Well, she's spent enough time with him at this point. Plainly, I think can probably see he's an octogenarian, he's covered in wrinkles, he's got white hair and he's balding and stuff. Any illusion about the sort of romanticist style Manson as this psychotic dude dancing around speaking in tongues would have by now disappeared in her mind if that truly was the case. But the media totally overlooks this and totally ignores psychology. Trying to see if there's any other good shit in here to talk about. Yeah, basically he's talking about how CharlesManson.com and all this stuff has generated, hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit. She just wants his money. I strongly doubt that. And also, by the way, some people are talking about, well, maybe he's got money squirreled away somewhere. Well, part of the case was that he owed the Tate family hundreds of thousands of dollars. My thought is, any money she's making off of any of this stuff, if we assume that that was the motive, would probably end up getting paid out, I would think, as some form of debt to the Tate family. I'm not sure, again, as I said before, how the legal system works on that, but that would be my hunch, that especially in California, which is a money-grubbing state anyway, they're not going to forgo one penny of their cut. It shows Manson direct and the One Mind release and all this stuff. Yeah, there's all sorts of weird shit here, and he acts all concerned. You almost get the feeling that maybe he's jealous, and now it claims that he's built a sort of relationship with Manson. And that Manson's aware that he's his son and so forth. That's, probable. But, I mean, what's the point of lashing out at somebody who's got a solid relation? I mean, is he just, jealous that his probably father now has, a romantic relationship going on with somebody who could be his own daughter? It doesn't really make much sense. You go through this, and it's a little bit about his life, lots of pictures, huge number of letters. It's just basically a hatchet job when you really think about it. You would think that the media, even these tabloid sites, if they don't really have anything constructive to say and they're just going on the words of somebody who's not really connected with that relationship, what's the point of even reporting on it? There's really no story. People will be interested maybe in reading it, but the idea that she comes out with a ring on her finger, walks out of her home and gets snapped by a photographer a couple times, that's front page news, startles me. Because I'm used to seeing front page news as, Manson has cell phone in prison, gets confiscated. Manson releases a new album, talks about Indian chants or something. I'm used to seeing those kind of front page stories. I'm not used to seeing front page stories of someone who is not Manson, who it looks like, and I would warn Starr about this, the media and these people that are sort of gathered around the media may be grooming you to be sort of like the next sort of witchy symbol that they can demonize. That seems to be what they're doing. Now, I don't think she probably wouldn't give a fuck, because she likes Manson and doesn't really, care what other people say, but that is the risk. That they now realize Manson is entering the late stage of his life because, let's face it, he's old. So they're probably going to look around for somebody else to make into their great Satan for the next few decades. And they figure if it's connected with Manson in some way, why not? The Manson name stays alive and they can talk about how this woman must be spending her money on dune buggies and machine guns and trying to start a race war in the United States. They'll probably make such stories, because that's the way that the media works. And this isn't even the U.S. media. Usually it's limited to the U.S. media. This is DailyMail. So the link is in the description, but I thought that was a funny fucking story. To make light of the situation and to put this out in the most tabloid-esque of manners is really indecent. It's really kind of scummy when you really think about it. Now, of course, the average person doesn't care if it's scummy because it involves Manson. To them, Manson's a zoo animal, and anyone associated with him is a zoo animal too, so it doesn't matter how much you sort of run him through the ringer. And the general public is too dumb, I guess, to understand that they're basically being taken for a ride too, because the media simply doesn't have anything else interesting to report, so they slap Manson's face on a story and say, oh, Manson woman, Oh, Manson cell phone, Manson album, Manson selling hair, you buy a lock of hair from Charles Manson or something like that. It's really retarded when you really think about it. And then his son there, if that's actually what he is, he should be ashamed of himself for coming out and saying all this stuff. If he is not actually connected with that relationship in some way, then why is he speaking on it? That's a totally separate thing. Star is not his actual mother or anything like that. Although technically, wouldn't that make her his stepmother or something, and she's younger than him? I don't know how all that stuff works. That would be kind of interesting, but I mean, come on. Manson's an 80-year-old man. And manages to create a little bit of music, and he's got some art prints and postcards and stuff out. That does not a fortune make. The idea that Starr is grubbing after this non-existent fortune, I think, might be the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. And that's going some when you're talking about the Manson issue. You got a lot of really funny claims that are made. The funniest of all, though, again, I think this takes the cake above all else, is the fact that now they are claiming that Manson is somehow being manipulated by somebody, when they spent the last 5 decades telling everybody who would listen that Manson's the one manipulating everybody around him. It doesn't make sense, and when things don't make sense, generally it's because they're not true. So one of the two, either Bugliosi needs to come out and say, yeah, Helter Skelter was just my idea of a joke, by the way, Manson's innocent. Or they can give up the tired now, at this point, very tired line of, well, Starr is also a master manipulator, so cunning she's even manipulated Charles Manson himself. Because again, when people think of Manson, they really think of him in the Snyder Geraldo days. They think of the dude dancing around and talking about killing people. They don't think of the tired old man who may or may not have some form of dementia by now. They don't think of the, rather bedraggled figure that really keeps to himself. I mean, he doesn't give interviews, can't under California law, unfortunately. Doesn't talk to the press, doesn't really do anything, now largely speaks through other people. But yeah, the story is funny. So it's definitely worth a read. I mean, obviously it's tabloid material. Most of it's probably completely false. But it is funny. Read it if only for the humor. Yeah. That's about all. Peace out.